Long before Oya became the Orisha of storms, she was a girl who ran into the wind while others sought shelter. She could read the rivers, sense danger before it struck, and move with a courage that no one else dared. Born along the Niger, she carried a spark that would one day change kingdoms. From fearless child to warrior queen, to a storm the gods themselves would reckon with. This is the story of Oya, the unstoppable force you cannot ignore. Before we dive in, welcome to Griot by KD, a place where the stories of our ancestors come alive, where courage, power, and legend meet the human heart. If hearing these tales moves you, sparks your curiosity, or inspires you, hit like, subscribe, and join the journey. And tell me, where are you watching from? I want to hear your voices and connect with you as we explore these stories together. They say the wind carries stories, and some begin long before the gods take their place. Before Oya became the Orisha of storms, she was a child along the Niger River in what is now Yoruba land, centuries before colonial records. The river was her playground, the storms her companions. While other children scattered when thunder rolled, Oya ran barefoot into the wind, laughing as the rain kissed her face. She listened to the rustle of leaves, the crackle of distant lightning, as if nature itself spoke directly to her. Her mother, a trader along the riverbanks, taught her sharpness of mind, how to read people, strike bargains, and honor the spirits of water and earth with kola and cowries. Her father, a craftsman of iron and clay, showed her patience and precision. From him, Oya learned that true strength wasn't only in force, but in skill, discipline, and focus. Yet her greatest teacher was the land itself. The Niger could swell and flood without warning, uprooting fields and homes. The winds tore through trees and scattered crops. Oya studied them all, how the clouds gathered, how the birds fled, how the waters rose. Every shift in nature was a lesson. But Oya's spirit was restless. In a society where girls were told to be silent, she asked the questions no one else dared. Why should fear govern people's lives? Why were some rituals closed to women? She refused to stay within the boundaries drawn for her. The elders watched her, sometimes shaking their heads, sometimes whispering that the wind had already claimed her. Every leap into the river, every storm she followed across the fields was shaping her. By the time she became a young woman, she was no longer just another daughter of the Niger. She was a force in motion, and already the winds were whispering her name. Oya's first great teacher and her first husband was Ogun, the Orisha of iron and war. Their bond is remembered in different ways. Some say it was love, others a brief encounter, but no one denies the mark Ogun left on her destiny. From Ogun, Oya learned the language of iron. She stood by the forge, watching sparks leap into the air as hammer met metal. Every strike carried a lesson: patience, rhythm, discipline. She learned that iron bends only to steady hands and careful timing. So too, battles are won not by brute force alone, but by strategy, foresight, and restraint. She studied warriors in training, their movements sharp and deliberate. From them, she came to understand that strength without wisdom collapses, and courage without preparation ends in ruin. But Ogun's greatest lesson was leadership. Oya saw how he commanded respect, not by fear, but by listening, guiding, and teaching. She followed his example, mediating disputes among apprentices, helping others see beyond anger, and discovering that influence flows from insight, not intimidation. Yet Oya's spirit was restless. The forge, the battlefield, both were too narrow for her. The river still called with its secrets, the winds with their freedom, the storms with their untamed promise. She began to realize her path could not remain bound to Ogun's world of iron and war. The life of constant battle weighed on her, clashing with her need to explore, to question, to grow. And so, with courage, she chose to walk away, not in anger, but in pursuit of a destiny larger than any forge could contain. Her time with Ogun left her sharpened, disciplined, strategic, and prepared for leadership. But it also taught her that true power is not found in staying where you are safe. It is found in daring to leave, and it was this choice that would eventually lead her to Shango, the fiery king of Oyo, and a love that would change not only her life, but the destiny of empires. When Oya became Shango's wife, she didn't just enter a palace, she entered a storm of fire, politics, and power. The palace of Oyo was alive with color, sound, and movement. Vibrant tapestries in deep red gold and royal blue hung from intricately carved pillars. The scent of burning palm oil and incense mingled with the earthy aroma of clay courtyards. Drums echoed in rhythmic patterns, calling warriors to practice while servants moved like shadows along the corridors. Shango, king of Oyo and future Orisha of thunder, was feared for his temper and revered for his authority. If you want to dive deeper into Shango's story, check out the detailed video I made about him, his rise, his power, and his own path to becoming an Orisha of thunder. But Oya, she met him with equal fire. She arrived not as a shadow of her husband, but as her own force. Oya wasn't just Shango's wife. She was a warrior queen, a strategist, a leader, a storm in human form. On the battlefield, she read the wind like a map. Its shifts told her where enemies would move, when rivers would rise, and where her own warriors could strike with advantage. The storms she seemed to summon weren't magic. They were her deep understanding of nature, turned into a weapon of strategy. One day, as enemy forces pressed toward Oyo, Oya stood at the riverbank. She watched the currents, the clouds, the gusts overhead, and then she moved. Canoes shifted, currents redirected, winds carried dust into enemy eyes. Bridges collapsed under swollen waters. By the time soldiers realized the land itself was against them, the battle was already lost. Oya had turned storm and river into her allies. In another fight, beneath a burning sun, the enemy tried to trap her troops in a narrow valley. Oya saw the trap before it snapped. She used the wind, sending dust and banners into the air, blinding her opponents. Her soldiers struck from the flanks, every move guided by her sharp eye and timing. What looked like chaos was, in truth, a storm she choreographed. Each battle she had witnessed, each strategy she had guided, replayed in her mind. She reflected not only on victories, but on the moments where courage and timing could have changed outcomes, where a single choice could tip the balance between triumph and disaster. The river's currents mirrored her thoughts, sometimes swift, sometimes gentle, always moving forward. She realized that true mastery was not only in the battlefield, but in understanding the rhythm of people, nature, and time itself. Every ripple, every gust of wind became part of her strategy, teaching her that storms, both in battle and in life, are shaped by those who can read them best. Shango's court was vast, filled with wives, warriors, and rivalries, Oba, Oshun, Ayan. Yet Oya's presence stood apart. She didn't compete for attention. She studied, adapted, and made her voice impossible to ignore. In a world where royal marriages were political as much as personal, Oya learned how to navigate intrigue, advise in strategy, and shape decisions that reached far beyond palace walls, and ensuring that women's voices were not silenced in the halls of power. By the end of her mortal life, Oya had become more than a queen. She was a storm given form, fearless, intelligent, and commanding both people and nature. The storms she once orchestrated became symbols of her power, inspiring generations after her. Her story reminds us that real strength isn't brute force. It's courage, strategy, and the wisdom to master the world around you. Every great story has a turning point, and for Oya, it came not with a whisper, but with a storm. Oral traditions across Oyo, Ile-Ife, and Nupe lands speak of her final days. Some say she fell on the battlefield defending her people, others that she chose to cross into the spiritual realm, embracing her destiny as an Orisha. What unites all accounts is her courage. Oya never surrendered, never bowed to fear. By this time, she had mastered storms, led armies, advised kings, and earned respect in a male-dominated world. That mortal strength became divine power. The winds and rivers she once commanded turned into symbols of change, renewal, and protection. Even Shango, her husband and equal in power, recognized her strength. Mortals honor her not just as a queen or warrior, but as an Orisha whose presence still echoes in rituals, festivals, dances, and prayers across Yoruba lands. Oya's story reminds us that true power is earned through courage and fearless action. From mortal girl to warrior queen, from strategist to Orisha of storms, she shows us that one life, lived boldly, can leave a mark that time cannot erase. The winds still whisper her name, and her storm continues to rise. If Oya's storm still moves you, join me this journey. Subscribe to Griot by KD for more stories that bring African history and mythology to life. And tell me, what would you do if you had Oya's power? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be there engaging with you.